and welcome to the Change Makerz Podcast, a twice-weekly podcast highlighting Gen Z activism. I'm your host today, Cullen Munro, and I am joined with Rebecca Cutsinger.
Hey, Cullen.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. Now, Rebecca is the founder of the Network of Enlightened Women chapter at JMU, which is a national organization. You're also a JMU cheerleader.
I am.
And a former writer with The Breeze.
I am.
Now tell me, why did you feel it was important to start the Network of Enlightened Women chapter here?
So when I was a freshman coming onto JMU's campus, I've always been very outspoken about my views in class, and especially being a journalism major, or a media major, politics is something that comes up quite often. So while I was in class, I kind of started to realize past my freshman, sophomore year that all of a sudden I realized, I was like, hold on. The only people I know on campus that stand up for conservative beliefs on campus are men. All of my conservative friends that are outspoken are men. I have conservative friends that are women, but they're privately conservative or closetedly conservative. And being in, the major that I'm in and the classes that I'm in, I found that almost every single outspoken woman was majorly liberal. And I was like, you know what, that's weird. Like, I don't like that. I know that there are conservative women on this campus that could use a voice or could, I wanted to empower conservative voices on campus. And so when a friend of mine who has since graduated brought up Network of Enlightened Women to me, and she was like, oh my gosh, I think some of the people from the national organization had read some of my Breeze articles and thought that I'd be a good candidate to start the chapter. And actually, I learned a couple months after I had launched our chapter here at JMU that I was not the founder. There was a chapter of Network of Enlightened Women here at JMU in 2010, and I'm not sure how long it lasted, but it fizzled. So technically I reignited the chapter. Okay. So I wanted to empower conservative female voices on campus and in the classroom.
Okay, and that's an interesting topic because a lot of the conservative women are characterized as like the silent voice. Why do you think that is?
I will say that it's, most college campuses today are lean left. Some lean heavily left, some slightly left. The only conservative campuses, I would say, are normally religious-based campuses, so like Liberty University, some other private Christian schools. I think that when women come to campus, they have certain priorities in mind. And if they're not already politically aligned, it's not something that they want to necessarily throw their hat in the ring about because it's super divisive. And I totally understand that. But it gets to be dangerous when they feel like they're going to face backlash or they see other people face backlash and they're like, you know what, I'd rather keep my friends. You know what, it's not that important to me. And it's not that important to me to make waves. And then they put themselves in this quiet corner. And then they make all these friends, and then after X amount of years, if they're not speaking up, then they feel like, oh wow, now I'm in this spot where if I do speak up and I do tell my friends how I feel and I do side with the other side of the conversation, all these bad things might happen to me. Like, I might lose friends in my sorority. I might have a harder time in class. I might get graded poorly by a professor. I myself have experienced all of these things, and I consider myself super outspoken. So for people who don't normally speak up or aren't super, have that political gene, it's hard for them to break the glass ceiling and get involved in the conversation.
Let's speak about that. Would you characterize having conservative opinions on campus as being ostracized? So we are kind of a mainly left-leaning campus, at least administratively.
Yes,
what's that
definitely administratively. I would say, do I feel that ostracized is the right word? I would say definitely in specific spaces, in others not so much. So, the business school, a lot of business kids are majorly conservative. A lot of the girls in my chapter notice that the most safe they feel is in business classes or with business majors. But in other sections of the university, like art, theater, dance, some more liberal arts programs, absolutely I would say that they're ostracized if they were to come out as conservative. So, and I don't want to misrepresent JMU. I think that while JMU does publicly lean left, silently I think the campus is relatively middle of the line. I would say we're probably 60-40 at best.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about having conservative views on campus. I mean, what do you think people get wrong about conservatives on campus? Because this is probably something that you have to deal with a lot as someone who is more outspoken about your views.
Right. I think that the number one thing is they see conservatives in the media, and the word that they attribute to that is hate and evil and oppression. And they want to, or their mind immediately goes to those loudmouth, political pundits when someone sides with the other side. Instead of taking a chance to understand the other person's views and understand where they're coming from, they see a fearmonger or a hate monger, and they're like, that's what you are. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. I think that there are obviously people on both sides, in the media spheres that cater to fear-mongering and want to be that loud, aggressive voice because, aggression and anger gets clicks. We learn that in media. But the majority of conservative women that I know, they're, pro-liberty, pro-freedom women who honestly want to be left alone. That is one of the main points of conservatism, is that I want to live my private life and I want the government to stay out of my life. And you can do what you do over there, and I'm going to do what I'm going to do over here, and we're good, So to me, it's such a contradiction, because it's like, that is so not what we're about. We're so not about like telling people what they can or can't do or whatever. If you want to go as far as to say libertarians, really believe that. I wouldn't consider myself a libertarian. But I would say that, it's a wrongful label to get, the hate fearmonger label.
Okay. And why do you think that this label is even there in the first place? Is it because of the media? Is it just because of our times? Where do you think this all started?
I would say that divisiveness is a really hard issue today. And it started, I place divisiveness in the beginning of the severe divisiveness in our country in the last 10 years in the Obama administration, when Obama fought with the Republicans in Congress and constantly blamed Republicans in Congress for not being able to get things done. Now, I'm not saying that's the only issue, and then Donald Trump comes into office, the divisiveness gap, that was like the floodgates, and now we're just kind of stuck in this moment where I'm over here and you're over there, and I don't want to touch the center with a 10-foot pole. And I think we need to move away from that. I think that if we were to take those media labels off of people with differing views than ourselves, I try to surround myself with people that are vastly ideologically different than me. Some of my best friends are ideologically very liberal, and I love those conversations. Those are some of my best friends, because I love learning about how other people see the world, and as long as the conversation is respectful and they are equally as curious as to how I see the world, it can't not be a productive conversation. It always is. Obviously we're not going to change each other's minds, but I think that if more people kind of got outside of their bubble and outside of their echo chambers and really understood, hey, there's a large percentage of the American public that disagree with me. And hey, I might be wrong. You've always got to come into the conversation with, I might be wrong. And I always do. And I wouldn't always say I leave the conversation thinking I'm wrong, but as long as you are open-minded and you're willing to have those productive conversations, I believe that our generation can fix that divisiveness gap.
Okay. That's really interesting. What would you say that you've gotten up to recently? Because recently it's been really divisive. Even in this past week, what has the Network of Enlightened Women been up to?
So I do want to say, because I should have said this at the beginning, while I am the chapter president, I don't speak for the organization. Okay. All of my views are my own. But recently on campus, my chapter of NEW, because that's the acronym, hosted Riley Gaines, who is a 12-time All-American swimmer. She competed against Leah Thomas in the NCAA championships in 2022 and tied for 5th with Leah. And she realized that there was a problem that the NCAA was overlooking, and that biological men competing in women's sports inherently oppresses women, inherently takes away trophies from women, scholarships from women, advantages from women, because men have clear biological differences and advantages than women do. And, then we can go into the whole conversation about, okay, well, puberty blockers, okay, well, HRT, okay, well, the whole transgender issue. And while people love to get bogged down in the details and then try to, hate, shame, fearmonger, right? We get all into that divisiveness. We wanted to host Riley Gaines because overall, we stand for fairness. And overall, in a broad view of the idea, we're not trying to exclude any sort of race, sexual orientation, gender identity, the gambit. We just want fairness. And when you have a clear biological definition of advantage over another group of people, it becomes unfair. So Riley preaches, and maybe preaches isn't the right word, suggests that a third category for transgender athletes is like the best idea, which I support. So we hosted her on campus. She did great. She's an amazing speaker, super sweet girl, and that went super well. So we're very honored that she came to speak to us at JMU.
That third option is interesting to me, because we had a trans bodybuilder come on last week who also spoke about that same thing, because getting into like the testosterone levels and all that stuff, it's a mess.
Yeah, it is a mess.
And on both sides,
Yeah.
I don't think we're adequately prepared to have that conversation. Do you think that's like the
best option?
The best option?
I do believe that's the best option, and I'll tell you why. Blood doping, taking testosterone, taking any other in a bodybuilding competition, male, all biological male competition. If one of them was taking testosterone, that's cheating, and it's a big deal in that community. And taking hormones and how that affects your body, bodybuilders understand that to a T. T, huh? But so for examples like that, that's a great example that there are so many people that are wouldn't consider themselves conservative. That's what I think is so fascinating about this issue. There are so many people on the left that are professional athletes that understand, hey, I want to respect everybody, but that's not fair. And I'm grateful for everybody that everybody that comes out every single day, standing up for women everywhere in sports.
Okay. Yeah, so this is, I think a lot of people might not understand entirely, where your perspective is coming from. Words like anti-trans are thrown around and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
But I have a feeling that's not what you would consider yourself.
No, absolutely not.
Can you tell me about that?
So, for example, in the sports sphere, there was a transgender athlete on our cheerleading team here at JMU. And while that individual is no longer on the team, that individual was a female who transitioned to male and had a very, very, very hard time keeping up with the team. And I'm on the co-ed team, so I am a flyer. I get thrown by men. We all lift together like all athletic teams. And in the gym, it's the guys that throw me are consistently on a regular Monday, Tuesday, deadlifting 300-400 pounds. And they're probably going to get mad at me because I might be undershooting some of them. But that's just one example. This individual, obviously, a fraction of that. Why? Biological female. I'm sure that after a really long time, maybe they could somehow, that individual will never be on a given Monday or Tuesday without extreme chemical help get to where our biological males are on that team. And on the field, it shows, and you can't. So I like to talk about that because it's a prime example as to why male sports are not at a disadvantage. Male sports are not what's at risk here, because biological women transitioning to becoming a biological male will never be able to compete at said levels. If that were true, then in the NCAA competition, there was another transgender athlete who was a female who had transitioned to male who was still competing in the women's division. Why? because that individual could have never made qualifying times in the males division, even though they identified as a male and swam as a male and had a male name. Male sports are not what's at risk here. Female sports are. And isn't it interesting that, you know, everybody wants to preach about feminism and equality and, you know, oh, we need to get more women in sports, or oh, we need to get more women in sports, and then we're taking their trophies away from and giving them to biological men. Like, you know, this feels like Freaky Friday. And it doesn't make any sense. As far as, you know, take out the sports conversation, adults who want to, you know, feel that they want to transition, whatever, does not bother me to the slightest. I was friends with that individual on our team. Not that, you know, one friend makes a difference. I understand that argument, but it does not bother me. I don't have some sort of like hate in my heart against transgender individuals. I don't at all. If they want to, you know, compete in sports, I love that. I think sports should be inclusive. I think that sports should be fair, first of all.
Okay. And so, you know, what do you see as like the middle ground or the compromise in a situation like this? Because, you know, of course you have your opinions, but I'm sure you can kind of see the other side as well. You know, what kind of conversation would you like to have with someone who disagrees with you on this?
I mean, a lot of the things that I've already said, but the third option to me makes the most sense, and I would love to understand, you know, a counter argument to that. I haven't heard a very good one yet, other than, you know, oh, it's exclusionary. Okay, well, we already separate sports based on men and women anyway. We have the WNBA and the NBA, so we're already dividing on gender. If you want to, so dividing again to make a third option that falls in line with the same thought process.
Okay.
You know, the opposite of that would be, okay, well then gender doesn't matter at all. Let's just mesh all the teams. That would completely get rid of the WNBA. You know, there's no WNBA player that's going to play on an NBA team. They can't compete. So, yeah, I mean, I would love to hear a good argument as to why the third option is a bad idea.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to talk about today?
No, I mean, unless you have any more questions. All right.
It's a great conversation.
Thanks
Thank
for
you for
having
coming
me.
on. I appreciate it. Of course. All right, and that will be all. Thank you.